having having involved in formulating basin development strategy and joint project of the MRC over the last decade. He is also an experienced social science researcher. So I hope this session will be more engaging and most importantly, besides Slido with your question, and we can have more questions from the floor as well. So Dr. Lee, the floor is yours.
Let me remove face mask so it's more comfortable to speak. Thank you very much, Suphe. Now I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to this panel discussions on the information sharings and coordinations of Cascade Dam operations. How do we go from here to there? So I'm very pleased to introduce our three most experienced panelists, including Mr. Suphiran. Mr. Suphiran Chia is a regional water policy expert of the MRC Secretariat. Mr. Suphiran has worked in water diplomacy with MRC since 2009. And then the second, Mr. Lê Quang Huy, the last, is the head of the Technical and International Cooperations Department of the Power Engineering Consulting Joint Stock Company #1, called PECC1 of the Electricity of Vietnam since 2018. Finally, I would like to introduce Mr. Panu Vongchaam. He is the senior correspondent of the Thomson Reuters and the president of the Foreign Correspondents Clubs of Thailand, called FCCT. He has been a broadcast journalist since 2010 and has worked as an Indochina correspondent for Singapore Channel New Asia. So now I would like to invite Mr. Suphiran with a few questions. Mr. Suphiran, the MRC has recently released the Sustainable Hydropower Development Strategy called SADS 2021. What is the new about this strategy and how is it different from the last strategy 2020? And what is the MRC trying to do for better coordinations of dam operations? Why should we care about it? Mr. Suphiran, please.
So thanks a lot, Dr. Lee, for the questions. So I'm pleased to speak and to respond on this question by providing you or presenting you with a short presentation. So again, very good morning, distinguished participant, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to talk and also to meet with the old colleagues as well as the new face here. And with as Dr. Lee just mentioned, the MRC, the Mekong River Commission, approved the Sustainable Hydropower Development Strategy. We call it as HDF for short. Last year, at the end of last year, and just today, a few days ago, we managed to launch it online. So the question that Dr. Lee posed is first, what new? So what news compare between the Sustainable Hydropower Development Strategy today's and 20 years ago, the Mekong River Commission also approved the first Hydropower Development Strategy, HDS. So during that time, the MRC with the member country worked on the so-called generating the knowledge. So meaning that we are trying to formulate and establish a number of studies, tools, and guidelines to be used as the guidance related to hydropower development activities. I just would like to highlight some. For example, this one, it's about the so-called ISH, the Initiative Sustainable Hydropower, one of the MRC projects during that time. Under this initiative for hydropower development, we develop a number of guidelines and also study. This one is about the high initiative for sustainable hydropower number 1, ISA 01. It dealing with the identification of the ecological sensitive sub-basin for development of hydropower. And this one is ISA 02. It about developing or formulating of the guideline for the multi-purpose evaluation. So meaning that the evaluation on the cost and benefit of the hydropower development vis-a-vis the social, economic, and environmental aspect. So also during the previous hydropower development strategy, we also do some other tool. For example, the rapid basin-wide sustainability assessment tool, which we are looking on the evaluation on based on number of topics ranging from the social, economics, finance to the environment and the issues, technical issues like hydrology, sediment, and fishery, etc. And also the a guideline on the mitigation. We call it the MRC hydropower mitigation guideline was also developed, and also the council study which have been highlighted earlier as well. And we all know that this council study was a huge and big study on the pro and con and the assessment on the hydropower development as well as other development in the Mekong Basin. And the last one is about the preliminary design guidance, which was approved in 2009. This guidance has been used very comprehensively, especially during the preparation of the feasibility study by the member country, and also during the process of the PNPCA, especially the prior consultation. So in short, we can say that for the last 20 years or 20 years ago, our MRC Mekong River Commission focused our work on generating knowledge mitigation measure and over the last 20 years, and we see that there are a lot of development. And for example, the construction of the dam and other infrastructure irrigation within the upper part in China as well as in the lower part of the Mekong. And it also the rapid change in terms of climate change, which create a flood and drought more frequently and more catastrophic. With taking into account this rapid change, the MRC, the Mekong River Commission, have developed and consult in formulating the new sustainable hydropower development strategy. And with this new approved SHDA, we still continue and enhance the knowledge in terms of filling the knowledge gap. At the same time, we focus on information and that they are sharing, especially the information around cascade operation or dam operation, and also strengthening the wide cooperation and sustainable development. So I just would like to highlight some of the strategic and main aim of the newly approved SHDS. So you can see that there are 5 main strategic priority within the current SHDS, focusing on, for example, the first strategic priority aiming at avoiding and minimizing and mitigating the impact from the hydropower development as well as other infrastructure development, and especially enhancing or improving the implementation of the PNPCA. So meaning that we are working around updating the preliminary design guidance as well as trying to improve based on the lesson learned on the implementation of prior consultation. And also the second strategic priority is on managing and operational management of the cascade operation. While the third strategic priority is focusing on the energy security, looking at the taking into account the climate change aspect and the risk management. And the fourth strategic priority is focusing on the livelihood of the community as the social aspect. And the last one, we still continue to work on filling the gap in terms of assessment and tool. The second question we ask is, what are we doing for better coordination, especially on the dam operation within this SHDS? So we know that there is a need for operational coordination, because the basin, as we know now, it's not like the status, natural status anymore. There are a lot of development, and it has been regulated by infrastructure, including dams. Also, climate change aggravate the river situation, and also cause a lot of problem in terms of flood and drought in the region, especially in the last few years. And this, with facing with this difficulty and challenges, as well as rapid development, we need to have a kind of very coordinated and in terms of operation of this existing development. And the main focus for the data and information as well as the cooperation of operation, we look at into four main aspects, ranging from flow, water level management, the sediment management, river morphology, and also the management of emergency vis-a-vis the warning system and how to prepare for this emergency. And also we are trying to work toward the facilitate the design and management of the hydropower in terms of the cascade within the tributary as well as in the mainstream. So doing with this and in line with implementing the SHDS and in line with the BDS as well as the MRC strategic plan, at least there are a number of the deliverable as well as output that we are looking from the implementation of this. So including the opportunity, identify the opportunity for coordinated operating rule and arrangement for dam operation. So with this, we have the MRC managed to work with member country to produce a report on this opportunity, and it will be soon launched in our website. And the second and the third one is about developing the cooperation or coordination or mechanism for information sharing of the existing dam, and also for the emergency action or response. So these two I will further elaborate in my next slide. And the last one, we aim to work at developing operating and communication mechanism for both existing and newly planned infrastructure, including them. So under the developing of the mechanism, coordination mechanism, we are now working on two pilot projects. The first one is developing the cooperation mechanism for data and information sharing for existing dam. We aim that the work is starting from now, and then it can be complete by the end of next year. The main aim is to understand what are the information essential for the operational coordination. With this, we will do the gap analysis in terms of data needed, and especially from this step, we will focus mainly on the water level, water flow. So the sediment and other sector will become later. And we hope that by this exercise, we will come up with an operational dashboard, and we will get the lesson learned to be further scaled up into other basins. So the pilot project for this one on the mainstream, we will focus on the Sayaburi and Donsong project. So the project, the location that we highlight in along the river. So the second pilot project is on the coordination mechanism focusing on emergency. We agreed with the member country to pilot it in the 3S basin. However, we choose the Sesan River as the first start. And the main aim is to understand the role and responsibility of all the relevant regional and national agency. And we would like to establish the link to the regional management agency. And we will have also a dashboard, and then we would like to gather the lesson learned and then scale up in the next phase. The last question that Dr. Lee posed earlier is about why should we care? Why should we care about the implementation of SDGs in general, and why should we care about the sharing information with regard to the cascade operation? I think we all agreed that the sharing of information, for example, the information on flow level, especially the spillway and discharge, is very important to not only the relevant developer, the cascade developer, but also to the decision maker and also to local community in terms of preparing ourselves for the emergency situation and also for other kind of operation. And the sharing can also help with minimizing the environmental impact. For example, as long as the sediment flushing in terms of from one dam to another can be shared, other sector related to ecology can be also benefit. And also in terms of optimization of the energy production, so developer and operator can be well prepared if they know about the information that should be shared in terms of water release and water discharge. So all in all, when we know that the implementation of the SHDS as well as other MOC products, for example, the basin development strategy require comprehensive engagement and implementation. So each of the stakeholders have the different roles. However, cooperation from all of us is very crucial to ensure that to ensure effective implementation of SHDS as well as other regional strategy to ensure that human life is less harm and is improved and to minimize the environmental social impact and to enhance the social livelihood. So I would like to end my presentation here and hand it over to Dr. Lee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supriyan, for updating us the achievements that we implement the hydropower development strategy since 2021 and update on the scope of the currently approved the HDS 2021. So after 20 years implementations, I think it's great work that MRC have developed a lot of products, and this product have been currently is being uptaken and also uptaken during the PNPCA process. So this is a great work. Now let's move. Now we are moving to Mr. Lê Quang Huy. How did you manage to get different developers from different companies to share information and data about their hydropower operations? For example, are there any policy in place? There are any coordination mechanism in place, or are there any challenges, and how did you solve this issue? Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to answer the questions through example in Sesan and several basins in Vietnam. There are two transboundary rivers, and those are with the same framework characteristics. So I would like to specifically mention about Sesan the SERPOC is similar. So in Vietnam, we have relevant several law and regulations, and as you can see in the screen. But for operations, we have operation rules for cascade reservoirs. We have at the moment we have several rules for several basins, and for Sesan and Serpox, we have two operating rules for multiple dams in 2019 and 2020, 2018. And the issue is that the central governments and set out the rules, and this will be overseen by ministerial agencies like Ministry of National Environment and Resources and Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Ministry of Industry and Trade. But actual comments for operating rules, operations of the cascade reservoir mainly overseas by the province, and the dam owners and several other agencies will be implemented. So here you can see that these summarize of two cascades in Vietnam. On the left figures is catchment of Sesan, where we have two provinces and 8 dams. In the Kon Tum province is in the northern part of the cascade, and the Zarai province is the southern part. In the right figures, we have Serpok basins in 3 provinces, and the lead province in both in the Serpok river is the yellow areas, where they have a bigger catchment area, and so they will comment the operating of the real catchments. Here is a sketch of the operatings and comments and information sharing in Vietnam. On the top, we have the national government interagencies for natural disaster prevention and controls. And the chair will be the Prime Minister, so he has the authorities to command everybody's. In Sesan catchments, we have Kon Tum province to guide the operating of the catchment during extreme situations like floods or extreme drought season. The live province will be informed by operating requirements from Kon Tum province, and we have overseas agencies, like I said before. But we also have some important partner, like the weather forecast, the central the central center and the regional center. And here we have implementing solutions reservoir for hydro. So the upper projects will have to inform the lower projects. But in this particular case, we have Sesan 4 and Sesan 5 4A. Both have regulating capacities, but the Sesan 4 will has a bigger reservoir capacities, so they will more or less control the flow into the Cambodian sites. So that's why the central government assigned Sesan 4 as the contact point to Cambodia sites. So everybody will inform the Sesan 4. So that's the Sesan 4 projects will inform the Vietnamese and in Cambodians Mekong communities, or also the authorities in Cambodia. In dry seasons, we all the reservoir have to inform the weather forecast service daily, twice a day actually, and then the weather forecast will inform the operating reservoir for forecast about 10 days. But session 4 and session 5 will be coordinating the operating and exchange information daily. In the wet seasons, where we have floods, and the reporting regime will change for 4 per days. And when they have floods, then the province will require the reservoir to release. And then after that, the upper reservoir have to inform the lower reservoir when they open the gates and how much they discharge go into the downstream reservoir. So for Cambodia side, the normal operating will be every 7 days. But in case of emergencies, then we will inform the Cambodia side in timely. So based on that, we have the 2 ways of sharing of the data. The first one is direct sharing from upstream to downstream, and also in session 3 and 4, also the downstream will inform the operating to the upstream side. So that's the session 4 will report to inform the Cambodian side. This is related. And the other way is indirect sharings. They report the reservoir parameters to the national service for weathering and receiving back the hydrological forecast. And they also have to report to the to Monterey, MAT, and National Dispatch Center for generating things. And one of the key control is the Directorates of Water Resources. They have own data reporting and ensure that the reservoir will have released the required minimum flows to the downstream side. So this is the website of this of Monterey. This is a very restricted, and each reservoir have to report the information into this system, and this is real-time monitoring. The other system is for dam safety control. They also we also have public site from event, at least for this. And you can see that is the data from afternoon of last week. And you can see it's somewhat different, but here you can see in the red line this is the status for session point to which indicate that it is releasing the minimum flow of 195 cubic meter per second to Cambodia to fulfill the agreement between the 2 countries. So the key point first is that we have clear mechanisms for sharing, and it is set by the central government, operation controlled by the province, and influenced by the stakeholders like reservoir owners and also the weather forecast, which is important, and overseas by ministerial authorities to ensure that this system is in place and properly informed. And the reservoir owner will have to share it directly and indirectly, and so that they get also the benefit from information sharing. And we target the automations and real-time data for 60 to 70% of key locations in both catchments. At the moment, the reservoir by event already reached that target. So this is my key point, and thanks for your patience for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hui. I think it's very good information about the dam operation, especially in the 3S, taking the experience from Sesan and Sripok. As you see, there are cascade dams over there, and it's also presented. It's linked from what Supiran presented on our pilot study to set up the information sharing in the 3S, especially for the Sesan River, to establish a more information sharing between member countries, particularly also Vietnam and Cambodia, on the dam operations and also warning. So as you see, also there is a mechanism in place. So we will also work on this, how to make it more public and improve the systems for operations. So this is great view from the dam operator perspective. Now let me move to hear the view from our journalist, Mr. Panu Vongchaams. So Mr. Panu, in your opinion, why is dam operation data vital to the public? Let's consider the rights to access the information and knowledge, that this kind of access should be free and transparent. Mr. Panu, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, well, I have to start by first saying that unlike people on this panel, I'm no expert on hydropowered or even sort of managing of the river system. What I do is I report, and the Mekong hydropower dams and other environmental issues is among several sort of ongoing issues of public interest for the last several decades, right? And rightly so. This river system affects millions of people, and despite attempts and tries by agencies like the MRC and also all the national water agencies, it seems that the publics are still in the dark in a lot of the times about how dams are being operated, what are the actual impacts on livelihood, fishery, environment. So these kind of the persistent questions that the public have over the past several decades. And having reported for the last decade, I understand that there's been a lot of attempts by dam operators, by MRC, by national governments to improve data. And as a journalist, you learn as you go. And I think there is a lot of data out there, but there are also a lot of sort of clear dark areas, omission, where people cannot see what's going on. For example, when Stakeholder Dam was launched a few years ago, there was a lot of questions about the environmental impact. And, people talk about the loss of fishery and all this. And we and other media continue to ask the operator of Stakeholder Dam to release data on fishery, data on dam water discharge. And these things are still not available to the public. And in the absence of data, of course, feelings will be the main kind of focus. When you have big power, naturally there are impacts. And in the absence of data, where we can talk and sort of point out the new trends that come, the impact of dams, feeling will be sort of the main point. In my slides, I'm basically going to show you sort of the headlines, right, of the stories that emerge following sort of the launch of the Stakeholder Dam, for example, the green algae that was appearing on the Mekong River, the changing color of the Mekong River, and also communities feel aggrieved that they have not been properly consulted, have not been properly told. I think these kind of development can be better handled if data are more transparent and easier to access. And also, there's a lot of technical knowledge, of course, available in the MRC website, for example. But I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about making some of these analysis simpler that local communities and other stakeholders in the region can better understand what is going on. So that's my first point. The second point is how to use these transparency and data sharing. I think a lot can be said about the processes of how these dams are being constructed and the process of how the public is being consulted. I have been to several PNPCA forum. I've been to forum organized by NGOs and others, and I realize there's still a clear gap, even right now. Even after more than a decade of these whole processes, that there's a feeling that the impact assessment has not been done properly before the dam are constructed. I mean, one of the clearest example right now, as one of the ongoing stories, the Luang Prabang Dam, where there's a UNESCO, there's a cultural impact assessment still not being properly addressed. And secondly, I think some of these, not some, but all the PNPCA process I've been to is actually quite informative, and it's actually, to be fair, it's been done very well in terms of giving the public information. The problem is, I think there's still a lack of participation, and there's a lot of confusion sometimes among communities about some of these processes and how much they can participate. And from time to time when I interview these communities, people are totally in the dark about these processes. I think this can be vastly improved to improve the idea of participation. You got to understand, as dam developers or as country governments, the media or the public is not your enemy. I mean, basically, we have to work together. Development is important. Economic development is important, but so are taking into consideration all the various impacts and environments. I think, having covered the story for more than 10 years, I think there are intentions. Everyone have intention to make things better, to improve. But the problem is that the process is still not inclusive enough, and also obviously back to the theme is that the data itself is not transparent enough. And the other aspect of data sharing is also about the speed. In recent years, we've been seeing the Mekong River being extra dry for all sorts of reasons, including climate change, but also from water discharges and the management of water hydropower dams on the upper Mekong Basin in China. Of course, this is an issue that clearly dominates the news because there are clear geopolitical framing to the issues, especially when the absence of data from one country give rise to data, for example, from the Stimson Center based in the U.S., for example, which is great for journalists, which is great for reporting, but at the same time, you realize that there are real casualties in terms of local community get kind of caught up in the geopolitical framing of the issue, but instead, their livelihood are being clearly affected. And I have to say, for example, communities along the Mekong River in Thailand are often impacted by sort of random rises of water levels, and sometimes sort of the drying of the water levels on the Mekong River, which is no longer seasonal. And to be fair to the ONWR, the Thai authorities do try their best to assimilate, to tell the communities when the water is being discharged, when the water level is rising or falling. But the problem with this is that it doesn't get to the community fast enough. I mean, like it or not, sort of the official mechanism for informing the community work to a certain extent. And this is where the media comes in. If there are a greater transparency, there will be several ways that you can tell the community what is about to happen, and we can see real impact from this issue. And I've worked with I've worked in these areas where Thai villages are becoming much more organized, and now they're sharing data themselves. They are reaching out to, they're sharing MRC data, for example, themselves, even before the government agencies here give them alerts. So that's the key issue. And lastly, of course, just one last point about this geopolitical wrangling. It is an interesting issue that caught the attention of global international media, and because there are sort of far-reaching implications, and it also sort of fit into the larger geopolitical stories around the world. Having said that, these kind of geopolitical framing tend to make local issues disappear. And as a journalist working for international outlet, but also as someone who lives here and was born here in this region, I think it is important that we need to kind of keep the conversation here alive, where not only the communities that are affected by these development have voices, but also dam developers, also the government. We need to have the conversation amongst ourselves to improve the management of the river system overall. And I think the bottom line, as we begin this talk, is about open, transparent data. And I think this is very important and vital. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Panu, for providing the view from the journalist perspective. So you have seen how important the role of journalists, bringing information, issue from local community to scientists and also to policymakers in order to have change in the region or in the basins. So now I think we start with the questions, discussions from the floor. Is there any questions, comments from the floor? Yes, please, Excellency.
Yes, good morning, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for the panel or speaker who provide informative presentation. As already presented, it is very important to look at the flow management, sediment management, management of emergency, and the design and management of hydropower cascade within the Mekong River mainstream as well as on the Mekong tributary. I see that it is very important because information, as long as we talk about data information, there are parts of data information. It should be categorized. And for the sharing of data information, it should be most relevant to the four perspectives that have been mentioned. I mean the flow management, the sediment, emergency, and the design and management of coordinated operation. And I see that it is really challenging of the transboundary sharing of data and information. I mean that between the riparian state and the MRC state member country, and also the actor. So I know that in the presentation have already mentioned that there will be a pilot project to testify how we're going to be work, but just would like to have a question. Any pre-thinking in mind how to make sure that we get the willingness from wholehearted of sharing of relevant data and information between the state member and between the riparian state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Kolwatana. He is from the Cambodia National Mekong Committee Secretariat. He is the Deputy Secretary General. So I suppose these questions go to Mr. Supiran. I think we can take one by one and then can answer where necessary. Mr. Supiran, please.
Okay, thanks a lot. So in terms of operation or information sharing about the dam operation from from the whole cascade of the river. I think as we discussed earlier and I pointed out, this is the pilot of the two projects is the first step, and we will based on the lesson learned, meaning by the end of the next year, we will gather the lesson learned, and also we hope based on this we will scale up to other dam project. So including, if possible, to the upper part of the Mekong River. So this is about the pilot project. However, we need to recognize and acknowledge that work has been already done within the whole strata of the river, from the upper part in China down to the lower part of the Mekong River itself. So meaning that cooperation has been already happening. China has shared the information on the hydrological data within year-round now for now, and then we start to do other joint study that you have already witnessed and during the presentation this morning. So from time to time, I think this is about how the cooperation between not just only member country, but also with other upper riparian country will take place.
Thank you very much, Supirans, for very good answer. Actually, I think Supiran also highlight this. It's also data sharing is bound with the rule and regulations in a member country. So I guess the process will review also rule regulations on data sharing. So this is very important, and it's also with the procedure for information data exchange. PDIS of MRC as well. So this we will be aligned with all of this sharing. Thank you. So now may I open more questions from the floor, and then we will get questions from online participants as well. Yes, maybe go to the back side, Mr. Wanra from NGO Forum, please.
Good morning. My name is Wanara from the NGO from Cambodia. I would appreciate with the guest speaker. They already mentioned about the information sharing, and especially for the company, they already a system with the information sharing. But it would be good if the system of the information sharing, the ordinary people they can access, and then they can useful for them, because the people who living along the rivers, there is direct, I think that with the fluctuation with the water flow, and then if you have like create now, I think that the company and the government they have information in their hand in terms of the dam operation, and then it would be good there should be discussed together in order to make a good mechanism in terms of the information sharing, even though used in the smartphone like application, and then they can translate from another language to another language automatically, and the people living along the river they can access directly. I think that it would be more benefit for them, and then they will happy to use it because it is a benefit to all. And then the people they will be know all information in advance, even though emergency or even though the water fluctuation, so they can prepare themselves in advance. And then it is also used like a mutual benefit, both like the people, government, and the company together in terms of the emergency, in terms of the address on the people concerned. So we want to see the system that the public can more access and more benefit to them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very good recommendation. I think very good recommendation, and I think we work toward this. Perhaps we'll get some more clarifications from Mr. Hui. Now, may I also, yes, please, Excellency. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Tenli, and thank you, panelists. Then I
Could you please identify yourself, please? Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Temli, and thank you, panelists, for the important topic for the sharing information hydro development strategy. I think the very important for. I am Chan Thien from the Ministry of Environment, Cambodia. That I think aligned with the sharing information very important and aligned with the Mekong Langshan. China have the plan for the 5 year next 23, 22, 23, 27. I think the important for the sharing that how to build the Mekong Langshan knowledge hub for the sharing, not only hydro. I think for the raising include the low carbon, green and sustainable infrastructure for the up Mekong and for the lower Mekong region, and how to align with the Mekong Langshan for the long-term next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and questions. Now, may I get some more questions from the floor, and then we can go to the panelists for clarifications and answer. So may I now let's have a quick answer from Mr. Hui on the data sharing.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, can we have a microphone? New one, please. Okay. Okay, I can. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Actually, in my country, we have several ways of data sharing. One way, as I informed you earlier in the slide, is a public site from EVNs where we share the daily water level, discharge, and also capacity. But another way is especially important in flood situations. In floods, then the national TVs will issues when publics notice about floods issue weather forecast, and also the prediction from the weather service about the water level in the downstreams in some key locations. Besides, if we have floods, then the emergency mechanism will kick in. Say the hydropower projects will issue the warning of floods. They also have sirens so that they inform people about discharge, and then they also inform the local communities through the chief of police or the communist head to inform to notify the local people. This is the top-down approach. I mean, my country is like that. I hope that we can hear more suggestions about information like that. One way I would think that it is possible is that the central government can send some SMS to your mobile phone for local people to notify the floods. But normally the more issue will be the fluctuations during operatings, and and people will in a number of hydropower companies, they have some kind of meetings with the local communities to say about how they're operating, and actually the local people also notify about the pattern of operating of the water of the reservoir. Say if that time they will have a higher water level, and at that time the powerhouse will stop by some time. This is also a kind of indirect approach like this. So this is how we currently implement in my countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hui, for the answer. I think very good. Linked to this, there is one question posted online. I think it's a kind of recommendations, question and recommendations. Can Cambodia reflect on the data sharing from Vietnam dams? This is referred to the Sesan, the SRAPO. Has it been useful? How can it be improved? So this is question posed to Cambodia reflections. We will note this question, and I think it's very useful comment for our gap analysis of the dam coordinations operation information sharing study that Superior presented. We took note this, and then we will include it in our study gap analysis. So this is one thing. The next questions, it's about, this one is from Miss Ombun Kipsuna from the Thai civil society organizations. How will MRC and LMC address transboundary impacts and uphold the rights of local community to their traditional livelihoods? So I guess this it's about implementations of our HHDS and BDS. So I would like to ask Superiors to respond to these questions, and if there is any addition from CEO could make top up on top of this. Thank you.
So this is a hot question. That's why we would like to involve CEO here. Let me try to answer based on my experience and working with the MRC and from the MRC side. We MRC, as I mentioned earlier, we tried since 20 years ago. If we talk about the hydropower development, we try to generate the knowledge. We try to establish the guideline, and also doing some study to inform and to advise to member country, and those including what are the good design in terms of to ensure the good project to be carried out. And also we recommend on a number of issues in terms of how to avoid, mitigate the transboundary impact to the river, to the livelihood, etc. So all the recommendation, this is what we have been done. And also we work with member country to ensure the uptaking of this recommendation. So by doing that, we believe that the MRC contribute a lot in terms of helping address the transboundary impact by preventing through the design, through the recommendation on the construction and the operation toward the project and hydropower, as well as in adapting to the development and to the impact. So we also, I would like to touch upon the issues on traditional livelihood. We need to recognize that our river has changed, and also a rapid change due to aggravated by climate change. So we cannot we can all possibly cannot longer live in a traditional way. So meaning that we need to think also the new way and how to adapt. So in here, the MRC play also the role in providing adaptation management, and we work with member country toward how best can activity in terms of adaptation can be implemented at the community level. So that's what I think MOC has done, and it requires all the implementation from member country, as well as the cooperation from the local communities. So I stop for now. Maybe if CEO would like to add, please.
Yeah, thank you, Superior. Yeah, I agree. Maybe I'll make 2 points. One is that about development impacts. I think we need to understand that impacts from development is related to both water-related sectors, but also exogenous sectors, right? So there are development impacts beyond the water sector that we need to recognize, and sometimes the two cannot be distinguished easily when you want to pinpoint and when you want to lay the blame. So this one we have to understand. The MRC try our best to provide knowledge about different types of impacts, try our best to monitor and try to provide advice. So that is the role of the MRC. But now, who's responsible for actions? Now we have to understand also clearly what is the role of the MRC and what are the roles of governments. Right? So governments in each country at different levels as well, central level, provincial level, local level. So to help population, their own people, adapt to change, to protect their livelihoods, ultimately these are roles of governments. But governments of one country cannot do alone. That's why they create the MRC to coordinate information from other countries, to get independent knowledge and assessment about the state of the situation, right? To provide advice, etc. So we need to work together because having one without the other doesn't work. So if everything fails in the Mekong, you said, oh, the MRC is at fault. That doesn't work. Or if everything fails, you say, oh, government is at fault. That doesn't work also. So there are different stakeholders, different bodies, different actors at different levels, and we need to understand the different roles and responsibility of each. But ultimately, like we always said, and this is harder to do than say, is to work together and to be responsible stakeholders and to discuss, to dialogue based on facts and not feelings, like what Panu said, not feelings. So because feelings can hinder cooperation and can build mistrust. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supiran and Dr. Lak, CEO of the MRC Secretariat, for providing a very good answer view on the role of multiple actors, not only MRC alone, also other actors as well, including governments, civil society, and also on the journalists as well, as it's the role to convey information from community to scientists and also to policymakers to take action. So this is we should not ignore this important roles. This is the clear message provided by the panel and the MRC CEO. Thank you. Now there is one question also. It's anonymous from online. For implementing the SHDS strategy, the MRCS has 2 pilot sites along the Mekong mainstream and also the 3S. And since we are now doing together between LMC and MRC on the joint study, would it be possible to add another pilot site in the upstream part? So may I again seek clarification from Supiran.
I think the pilot project has been agreed by all member countries, but still possibility to engage the upper riparian country still there. But it's just a question of on when. So maybe I cannot answer now, but possibility to engage is still there.
Thank you, Supirans, for clarification. This is very good. Now, this is the questions from the online. So now, may I get some more questions from the floor here? Maybe we can have face-to-face interactions. Yes, please. Please identify yourself.
My name is Supavat Gomaman from the expert committee of the ONWR. I agree all of you that you have the data sharing among the country members, but we have to look at the interactive between the local survey of local stakeholder in a village along the Mekong River that you already mentioned, but I agree deeply. Another thing is that we have to look at the information correction process, that we can emphasize on the data governance, data standardization, and also data certification, who will responsible for the incorrect information, or who will to make it more clearer for the all stakeholders. Particularly if you have the dashboard to display the information or data, maybe dashboard we have to look into two levels for the general person who interested in to look at, and other maybe for the researcher or the engineer or whoever who manage all the dam. So I think it's all that I comment. It maybe you have to look at at the two pilot site, and also the in each country member to have to make it the same standard. For the future, you can share the information, the data to make database, or I will foresee for big data for the AI, for the model simulation to forecast or predict maybe some event occur in the future. Thank you very much. This is my comments.
Thank you very much. I think this is very good recommendations. Our team take note on this, especially Spiran. I think it's so. May I seek also further questions from the floor, so that we could have the very good interactions in the meeting rooms. Ajahn Thayut, please. Ajahn Thayut, and then Gary here.
As I think, as we learned from the previous regional stakeholder meeting, that MRC informed in the meeting that Secretariat and member country has been working on the so-called technical guideline for transboundary impact assessment since 2004. So I do wonder, what exactly the status of that important document, because we have been discussed, I think, and Kun Panu also addressed the issue of, when we want to address the issue of the assessment, there must be clear technical guidelines to follow. And also, I think what we discussed here, and you mentioned about the strategy, but actually when we want to do assessment, we must use the good technical guideline, not the strategic document, and we know that we have been also working with the improvement of the so-called the design guidance, and that again, that document has not approved yet, and we know that the previous design guidance is lack of certain clear guidance regarding the livelihood and also those socio-economic issues. So could you inform us at the moment, what exactly the status of these two important documents, the TBIA guidance as well as the update design guidance?
Okay, thank you, Ajahn Thayut. I think maybe we could respond to your question first and then come to Gary Lee. Maybe I need response from Dr. Sonam in regard to the TBA on the status of TBEA guideline, and I will respond. So Piran will respond on the PDG. Dr. Nam, please. Dr. Nam is the Chief Environmental Management Officer of the MRC Secretariat.
Hello. I think thank you very much, Chan Chayut, for this question. I think the TBIA is very strategic document, really support any new development project to collect a good baseline for impact assessment, and also for construction and for operation and for adaptive management of the project. So this is a very important document that you say. And recently we have completed the pilot project to test the applicability of the guideline in Cambodia. And I think last week we reported the completion of the piloting of the guideline to our development partner. And also in April, we also reported this completion of the pilot to the JC. And we have also documented the lesson learned, the recommendation from the piloting from Cambodia. And the next step is we further probably do the slightly improvement of the guideline and resubmit to JC, and hopefully by September, and request for further application with the member country who are ready and willing to apply the guideline. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nam. Supiran, please.
So on preliminary design guidance, so Ajahn Chayut is talking about the updating the pre-design guidance. The original PDG was approved in 2009, and it when we test it, which means we use it to implement and support the so-called PNPCA prior consultation, we found some what we call it, some kind of gaps that we need to further update. That's why within the new revision, we have been done since around 2 years already, I think. And the new update include the design recommendation on the flows and hydrological issues as well as social aspect. And the status is we are still working with the Lao PDR, and it well progressed in the sense that the latest revised version has been sent for Lao PDR to provide comment, and we hope that we will soon get it, and we will further consult with other member country. And the aim is to get it approved or endorsed by the Joint Committee within this year.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nam, and thank you, Supiran. So both document is in the final stage again for the submission for the consideration by the MRC Joint Committee. So this is very good news. Just to highlight that the HCDS is the action-oriented strategy with the actions to be implemented through various MRC guidelines and guidance. So this is very good. Now go to Gary Lee for your comment, please. Questions?
Yeah, hi. Hello. Okay, Gary Lee from International Rivers. In terms of sort of identifying, I think one of your boxes on identifying opportunities for coordination and cooperation. I'm curious to what extent, as part of that process, you will examine and or engage with other key sort of planning and decision-making processes. I'm thinking in particular in terms of processes of power purchase agreements and concession agreements, which are usually the key agreements that help inform or govern the operating rules of hydropower projects, so are critical when you're talking about operational regimes. but to date, they've largely been considered commercial in confidence and not shared. I mean, this was also a key challenge in terms of when the MRC commissioned the review of the redesign of the Sayaburi Dam, where it was saying it couldn't assess to what extent the mitigation measures were effective or not because the operational rules were not provided. So I suppose in short, I mean, looking at also national planning and decision-making points, including the contractual obligations of developers, and to what extent will MRC processes try and align and engage with that to ensure that these are taken on board in addition to having some of this information much more timely and in the public domain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary Lee. This is very good recommendations and also perhaps short clarifications from Supirans on this.
I think I'm on the hot spot now. So actually, we recognize during the formulation of the concept note for the implementation of the two projects, we acknowledge the difficulty and the challenge vis-a-vis the different owner and developer of the project of the dam within the basin, and also we recognize that there need to be some sort of national regulation or law to demand to enforce the information sharing. That's why it take a little bit long in terms of the process itself. But during the implementation, for sure, the consultation, we work with the member country, with line agencies through the National Mekong Committee. And then through this working process, we ensure the official data information, which also raised or commented by the one of the participants earlier as well. So yes, we will maintain the working process and consultation on this, and we recognize the difficulty and challenge we face. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supiran. I think timing now is we are exceeding 12 for lunch time. So the only thing I want to put a final questions. We have a lot of questions from you, especially from online. So we will keep record all of these questions, and some of questions are in the form of recommendations. I think it's very good for us to uptake all of this and response during the process of our work on dam cooperation coordinations. Now, just the last questions to our panelists, Mr. Panut. I think you heard already about this work, and then perhaps you could also provide kind of recommendations on what is the role of media, especially from media perspective, in terms of engagement in the process of this data sharing of the MRC. Mr. Panut.
Thank you. I think the role of media is pretty simple. It's just to keep the public informed and sort of, especially linking all the various stakeholders in a conversation. Because what you notice that sometimes in not just hydropower, but in development issues in this part of the world, more than often the stakeholders do not talk to each other. There's no real conversation. There's no real, genuine exchanges of ideas, and sometimes the media plays that role. But I think, going forward, the media, in this whole conversation about making data transparent, I think with the nature of the Mekong sub-region of the Mekong Basin being what it is, the media is already transnational in so many levels. So it can be an effective partner, effective tool to developers, to stakeholders, to people like the MRC, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Panu. So I think we conclude our panel discussions. Finally, I would like to summarize key message from this panel discussions. So you have heard of the MRC presentations, comments, MRC is moving from knowledge generations to enhancing knowledge and also informations and coordination of cascade dam operations and strengthen cooperations for sustainable development. From the dam operator perspective, a clear framework for data sharing and warning is crucial for sustainable development. From the journalist perspective, absence of data means press coverage on hydropower issue is dominated by negative feeling from key stakeholders, as it leads to interpretations of whatsoever facts available to the publics. To conclude, information sharing on dam operations is crucial steps towards the contributions to sustainable developments that will facilitate notifications of discharge, warning, and emergency actions, minimizations of environmental impacts, optimizations of the energy productions, and cooperations between all stakeholders. And finally, I would like to thank the three panelists for providing your great insight. May we now give them a big applause, please. Yeah. Now I declare this session is closed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Tumley, Mr. Sapiran, Mr. Panu, and Mr. Hoyce. Thank you. So you can go back. So, colleagues and friends, now our session is finished. And then our organizing team has booked train ticket to bring you to Italy. Can you show us the train ticket? Văn Yong? Okay. Okay, sorry, we just want to keep you hungry a bit before we go. There you go. We are going to Italy for lunch today, this afternoon. So then we can have some spaghetti and probably papaya salad. Okay. Okay, so this one is announcement for lunch. We're going to Rome, a taste of Rome at Gochi. So Gochi is a restaurant on the ground floor behind the receptionist desk, the reception desk. So we have our people to guide you through to the ground floor. And we come back by 1 p.m. We come to this room, okay? Not going back home yet. We're not done. Okay. All right, so enjoy your meal. And then I'll see you again at 1 p.m. Bon appetit. Thank you. Oh, and for our moderators and facilitator for the next session, please.